right. So, good morning, and thank you for making some time to have a quick discussion. How long have you been doing business with our friend Roy?
I started, I believe 2015 is when I first met Roy. Found him on a Google search, and it was instant hit it off, and we've been working ever since.
What what has drawn you? I mean, Roy's personality as a founder of a business, I find uh, really refreshing. He's still got that enthusiastic swing in his step, like he started the business yesterday, and I think he's been in business for almost 30 years now.
That's correct. Uh, to be honest, all my dealings, interactions with Roy, I didn't realize he was the owner of the business. Um, and it was just that personal touch, that one-on-one touch, and it was probably later on, uh, I connected the dots, put two and two together, and realized who he was. He's always treated me with a personal touch, and he was always uh, calling me, pick up the phone. It wasn't just lost in limbo. It was always personal, white glove service from day one.
Yeah. Have you had any kind of really pressing challenge where you felt like Rush kind of just dug in?
Uh, I guess for us, the quoting, it was we've always dealt with local Canadian manufacturers, board manufacturers, and their quotes took a long time. And it was one of these things where we would receive a quote immediately, like that next night. And I was accustomed to getting quotes like 3 or 4 weeks later than when we requested it. And
It's
it was a
amazing.
few hours later. It's amazing. And we were taken aback. And we've had suppliers come back and say, your design is wrong, change this, tweak this. And our board designers would get frustrated saying, it's impossible. And you send it to Rush, and they're sending us prototypes without even questioning the design. So it's like, how is all these other houses saying that it's wrong? And then we challenge and push Roy, saying, "Are there flaws?" And they're like, "No, this is your boards are easy. There's nothing complex about them at all." Uh,
That's
so it's one of those things. It was a
that's
welcome change.
quite a process they've developed. In fact, if you'd have told me one day that I would be more comfortable outsourcing my most complex work than I would be trying to do it in house, I'd have said, no, never. Sounds like you kind of got that same level of trust.
We do because we have a young design team, and we've introduced some complex boards that we weren't accustomed to, and our local suppliers kind of took a step back, and Roy's team just jumped in and gave us their feedback, their input, and it no questions asked. It was just kind of like it was par for the course for them.
Wow. Obviously, you've talked about the rapid turnaround quoting, which is pretty state of the art. And I've never had him quote something and come back later and say, "Oh, we missed this detail." It's not like some clever way to give you a low number and then come back and upsell you. He's always, you know, whatever you quote. And
Exactly.
I assume you've had a similar result.
Well, we've had this similar, and it's even if they find a part that's a long lead time, obviously a part that we've spec'd out, they would actually give us a solution. They wouldn't just turn around and say, we can't get this part. It's always, we can't get this part, but try this, this, or this. So they've always held our hand, guided us, and that's why we have that relationship with them. And even during COVID was one of the worst times for us because you know how the board market was, how the parts market were. They were able to use their sources, scour scour the gray market and find us those parts that we were told had 98-week lead times.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they've
Well,
come
we
through.
all we all felt that pain. We all felt that pain. There were a couple of times where my sources were dry, and Roy'd be like, "Let me make a phone call."
Exactly. No, his team is special.
Do you use the quick turnaround manufacturing aspect or mostly just the quick quoting?
Both. We used to have R&D projects delayed because our coding used to take very long. So it's like we used to just factor in, okay, a prototype is going to take at least 8 weeks to get that prototype in our hand. And we were getting prototypes from Roy within a week, uh, to a point where a lot of our projects that were stagnant, we were able to push them, move them forward just by that quick turnaround.
Well, in fact, speed to market, it's the total stack up, right? It includes design, engineering, DFM, quoting, fab, and assembly. And if you can take time out of each of those processes, it's a huge competitive advantage for your business.
Exactly. We actually moved some production builds to Roy to a point where it was like, send us this board in about 8 weeks. And Roy was like, why? Why do you need 8 weeks? I can build it now.
Yeah, and that's not because he's not busy. It's just
Yeah.
because he literally has this attitude. I call it the spring in his step. Do you have any story where you feel like uh, maybe all hell was breaking loose, and sort of Roy and his team were able to slide into first base and keep the game alive for you?
Well, it's COVID. It was during COVID where a lot of relationships with suppliers were broken, and it was just not in the PCB, across our entire industry. Commitments were decommitted. You had an order, you expected a delivery date on a certain date. Our suppliers would come back and say, "No, you're gonna get it 6 weeks from now, or 8 weeks, or 52 weeks. Sucks to be you." And went to Roy and said, "Roy, we need your help." And it was, "Yeah, we got you. Don't worry, we'll take care of it." Um, so it was one of those things where, yeah, any obstacle, it was just like, they'll help us out.
Because
If,
sometimes people don't want to brag. They don't want to tell their own story, and they don't want to tell it as vociferously as it really ought to be told. And in my opinion, Noreen and Roy and the team, they deserve nothing less than to have that business really grow. So I
right.
appreciate your taking your time to be a part of helping that come to life. I know some people feel like, God, I don't want to let the world know about my secret, right? Uh, any misgivings about sharing your experience with Rush PCB?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's a close knit team. Everybody, there's always a response. So it's one of those things where you deal with them over the years. You feel like you know them on an intimate level. You have that confidence.